Behold, the new Mini. I know what you're thinking. It looks just like the old one. Why is that? Well, here's a secret no one states out loud. There is not one person in design at the BMW Group that will change a line on this thing for fear of being drawn and quartered in the town square. So this is the story of why it's all new and how it looks the same at the same time. An entirely new enthusiast car is always a big deal. An entirely new Mini, that's a big deal you just don't see coming, literally. Which brings us to a crossroads. We can go that way and wax on poetically about 3-cylinder engines, 4-cylinder engines, coming electric propulsion systems. Or we could go over this thing with a fine-tooth comb and try to find the changes that separate this from the car that came before it. And that brings us to the first stop on our design tour, the front end of the vehicle, which looks like pretty much every other BMW Mini that has come before it. However, there are some changes. The way it's framed, the grille, it's more squarish, which brings us to the theme going on here. Yeah, we have more angles, hard edges. Not just here, it's also in the hood. And that brings us to the R side of the vehicle, where even non-Mini devotees will notice some changes. Biggest being would be those tail lamps. The shape, yeah, changes. However, the animation that we've seen in previous Minis, where they have the whole pageantry of the Union Jack, they do it here. It changes based on the animation they're going for, whether you're locking the doors, walking to the car, or away from the car. Then the theme changes in the overall R side of the vehicle. Yeah, it still looks like a Mini, but unlike the front of the vehicle, where they're going for more creases, they're trying to make at least the tailgate look more mature. But here's both a bit of a break from what we usually drive and the good news. 3,014 pounds, or depending express your weights and measures, 1,367 kilograms. Yes, it sounds very light. However, that is 163 pounds more than the car it replaces. Put another way, it's about a 5% weight penalty. With that, let's go into go-kart mode. Start at the top. And then we have to confirm it here, turn the DSC off, and it makes this weirdo noise, and we're off. A little bit of it, oh, nice little wheel spin. That was unexpected. I have not been in a Mini in a very long time, so it's nice to be back here. First thing you notice, I don't know if it's because I haven't been in a Mini in a long time, wow, there is more torque steer here than there was before. Probably because of the power that's going through those wheels. And yes, that still goes through the 7-speed dual clutch we've seen in Minis for a very long time. But this is a quick little car in this mode. The biggest thing that you notice that is missing, I want to change paddles. I can't do anything with paddles. There are no paddles in this model. Wow, that torque steer. There are no paddles in this model. I'm willing to bet that at some point they will bring them to hotter versions of this car. Now, as we get to that hill there, I think we should try to, wow. This thing is a pisser in this DSC off mode. Notice what is missing here. Like, there's nothing here. No, there is no manual on offer. This is not good news. As you can imagine, they're basically going with sales charts. Porsches, they've sold those in manuals in the US at least for a long time now, because it's like 25% take rate in the most basic models, or I should say not the most basic, but the step up, the S, that kind of stuff, and it's 50% in the GT cars. But when we get back down to earth, even Toyota still sells a manual in their basic Corollas, and shockingly, the take rate is like 5%. It's pretty good, and that's why it still exists. Although bad news, the Volkswagen GTI and the Golf R for 2024 and forward, those do the same thing here and no manual. But I have to believe there's something wrong there. If you and I are honest, the transmission, the interaction with these cars, the way they drive, that is the DNA of these vehicles. That's why you need the more analog input. Okay, so apart from some subtle changes, this looks and drives like most Minis that came before it. Now that all changes as soon as one opens the door. Yes, there are a couple of traditional Mini design themes on the inside, like the oversized center gauge cluster and the low console. And that's where we arrive at one of the biggest changes, not just for interior design of Minis, but also UX design on digital screens. Here's a big round screen. Everything is there that one would expect in a square, rectangular iPad-esque screen. But here, it's rendered in the round, there's no other way to put it. The gas gauge, temperature gauges, all the UX controls at the bottom, and then as you scroll through different menus, whether it's in the BMW Mini OS, or iOS, or Android OS, this works in conjunction with the shape of the screen. It's probably one of the best interpretations of a modern day screen using a very unusual shape. But this is not the most unique party trick of this reinterpretation of the interior of a British icon. It's the way it feels, not the way it looks, the way it feels. All of the materials throughout the vehicle are different than what came before it. Like, for example, there's this very heavy cloth on the door panels that not only look different, give it some texture, but also feel different. That extends to the top of the dashboard, and then at night, it's lit up underneath that cloth. I had a hard time deciding which one of these party tricks was my favorite, and it's the one you notice the least that was by far the best. Take a look at the steering wheel. 3 spokes, right? But not all of those spokes are equal. The one pointing down at the driver's seat, that's not a spoke. The steering wheel, in reality, is a 2-spoke steering wheel, but it's connected from the airbag to the bottom of the steering wheel with a strap. Putting fascinating details like that together with other bits that are borrowed from previous menus because they kind of work, like the shape and size of the sunroof. Frankly, not everything is puppy dogs and roses. Some of the tactile feel needs some improvement, like the lower door panels, the front of the door panels. They don't work with everything else in this now revised interior, which makes this not so much a Mini, but like a small little luxury car on the inside. Rather than you and I playing a round of our famous game, the options game, we need to have a discussion about money as it relates to design. When you and I look at packages like this, efficient packaging, Toyota Corollas, they generally are the value leader. Now these may share a lot of equation with a Toyota Corolla, but these much more about design. It's been the case since the car came out from my ancestors, Greek people, and then BMW reinvented it in the early 2000s. Now, if we go back to, say, 2023, what did they cost then in the last generation? The most basic one was about $24,000 US, where a Cooper S, something like this, was just under $33,000 US. Well, as you can imagine, inflation. Not as bad as others, like we recently looked at the Genesis. Inflation there was over 10%. Here it is below 5%. It's gone up to $34,600 in base price. Now what you are looking at is arguably one of the most basic cars you and I have driven together in many years. Translated, it has really no options. The last time you and I did that was a Porsche Macan in Spain, a 4-cylinder. It literally had no additional options fitted to the car, and thus the Monroney, the window sticker, it had nothing. It was the base price, destination, and the final price. I've never seen this in the Porsche world. So here it's a bit strange as well, because BMW Mini, they usually hit you for options. The only thing here is a trim package, which is the iconic trim. It's the Harman Kardon sound, which is probably one of the best inexpensive upgraded sound systems from the Europeans. And then it adds the ADAS system, and then for the life of me, I will never understand this, the interior camera. All of that is $1,700. And that brings us to the only other thing we pay extra for, would be the destination and handling. And surprisingly, no, this is not a German car. It's still very much a British car. It is built in Oxford, so $995. A note about Oxford. I would love to see this in Oxford green. However, instead we see this in like Crest toothpaste blah. It's not a good color. I have yet to see it in many other colors on the road. I think dark colors probably would work with this design better. Either way, I do like the two-tone roof. That brings us to a total retail price of $37,295. So we get to the more important discussion when it comes to a Mini, and that's how they drive. And here, let's start at the most basic. Let's go down to the green mode. Kind of love the animations here. They even play a bit of a tone when they change. And here, the thing you notice immediately, it doesn't sound like a lot, but you do notice the 163 pounds, because that is 5% of the total weight. So the reality is, I feel like, especially in this mode, it's not composed. It's not like minis of the past. You can feel the growth and the weight. Now, if we go back into this, let's see here, where are we? Go into our go-kart mode again, and the interrupt screen comes out. Let's do that. And here, I feel the car is cleaned up a little bit, but this is where we get back to, I feel the torque steer a bit more here, so you're trading some control over the weight for, oh my God, this is a front-wheel drive vehicle. And I would say that's not a bug, that's a feature, that's one of the charms of this car. Overall, the reality, it's still lovely to drive a car that is only 3,000 pounds. It's a rarity in today's day and age, so the fact that we still have it makes it something that we should embrace and cherish, and probably put more of these things on the road. I will go so far as to saying that the exercise of driving the new Mini, we learned far more than we bargained for. Why do I say this? I like this. I like this a lot, but not for the reasons one would think. Yeah, it drives like a Mini, one with some weight gain. Can we fix that in future Go Fast versions? But really this, you think I'm gonna say it's about the design, rather it's about the reinterpretation of design. Yeah, there's things in there that make you think it's a Mini, but really it's about the surfacing, the tactile feel, which brings us to the wish list. And here, it's not really about the whole weight loss thing, which we still need if I haven't mentioned that prior. Rather, it's about, we need more of this. When I say this, maybe not more Minis, but more cars that are small, but big on design in the US. Great example, the new Renault 5. Yes, Renault 5. They don't bring it here to the US. It's an all-electric vehicle for Europe. The reinterpretation of design is exquisite. I cannot believe I'm saying this about a Renault. And it's not just the interior. You look at it and you immediately think, oh my God, that's a Renault 5, but it's not. Then you open the door and yeah, you get all the modern stuff with a screen. One screen, that's it. And then there's toggle switches, buttons, and then the pièce de résistance, much like this, tactile feel. The passenger side has that same interpretation of the stitched glove box like it had back in the day with the Renault from the 70s. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I want that so bad. And yeah, can we make it ICE, not just electric while we're at it? Anyway, enough of me coveting the French neighbor. You see where I'm going here, which brings us to the point. I turn around the episode to you guys to opine in the comments below, or via our social media, MotoManTV on word, MotoManTV on word, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And with that, if you found value in this episode, I would highly suggest you check out our other First Drive reviews. You can see that playlist here. Until I see you in the next episode, bis später.